The ocean looked peaceful from above, but deep below the surface it held secrets that had been hidden for many years. A professional diver named Arif moved slowly through the dark blue water, checking his equipment as he went deeper. He had spent most of his life diving in rivers, lakes, and seas. He had seen broken boats, lost cargo, and forgotten tools, but today felt different from the start. Arif was hired to explore an area where fishing nets often disappeared. The place was far from busy shipping routes, which made it strange that metal objects were sometimes detected there. As he descended, sunlight faded and darkness surrounded him. His breathing echoed inside his helmet, steady but cautious. Every movement felt heavier the deeper he went. The ocean floor appeared slowly beneath him, covered in sand and small rocks. Arif switched on his powerful light and scanned the area. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then a faint reflection caught his attention. Something smooth and unnatural was resting ahead. He adjusted his direction and swam closer. As the shape became clearer, Arif realized he was looking at a car. It was standing upright, not broken, not buried. The sight confused him. Cars did not belong in places like this. He moved around it carefully, keeping his distance. The car was large, longer than normal, with thick doors and dark windows. Arif noticed the metal body was still strong, not crushed or torn. This meant it was built for protection. His mind searched for answers. This was not a common vehicle. His light passed over a symbol on the front, and recognition hit him hard. He had seen this symbol many times before in history programs and official events. It was a presidential car. His heart began to beat faster. Presidential vehicles were closely guarded and tracked. Losing one would have caused worldwide attention. Yet here it was, silent and forgotten on the ocean floor. Arif felt a deep sense of unease. Why had no one found it before? Why was it hidden here? He checked the doors and windows. Everything was closed and sealed. Sea plants had grown around the wheels, showing the car had been underwater for a long time. This was not a recent incident. Time itself had tried to erase it. Arif swam to the back of the car. That was when he noticed something strange. The trunk was not fully closed. It was open just enough to leave a narrow gap. The metal edges were bent slightly, as if someone had forced it before the car went underwater. A cold fear settled in Arif's chest. He hesitated, knowing he could still turn back. But curiosity pushed him forward. He slowly shined his light into the dark opening of the trunk. Inside, something was visible. It was not metal or equipment. It had shape. It had weight. Arif felt his hands shake as his mind tried to understand what he was seeing. His breath became fast and shallow. The object inside the trunk looked carefully placed, not thrown. It was wrapped tightly, protected from water as much as possible. Whoever had put it there had planned this. Arif suddenly understood that this was not an accident. This was a message, a warning, or a secret meant to stay hidden forever. Fear took hold of him. He backed away slowly, his light still fixed on the trunk. He felt like he was being watched, even though the ocean around him was empty. The silence felt loud and threatening. Arif checked his air supply and realized he had been underwater longer than expected. He knew he had to leave. Some discoveries were too dangerous to face alone. As he swam upward, his mind raced with questions. Who was responsible? Why was the car hidden here? And why had he been the one to find it? When Arif finally reached the surface, the world felt unreal. The waves looked calm, but his hands were still shaking. He knew his life had changed the moment he looked inside that trunk. What he found was only the beginning. The ocean had revealed one secret. Many more were waiting. Arif sat on the small boat for a long time after coming out of the water. The ocean around him looked normal, calm, and endless, but his mind was not calm at all. He removed his diving mask and took deep breaths, trying to slow his racing heart. What he had seen below the surface refused to leave his thoughts. He checked his camera. It was still working. During the dive, his camera had captured several clear images of the car from different angles. He had not taken a close image of the trunk's contents, but the open trunk itself was clearly visible. Arif knew these images were important. At the same time, he felt afraid of what could happen if the wrong people saw them. As the boat moved toward the shore, Arif kept looking back at the water. He felt like the ocean was hiding eyes beneath its surface. He reminded himself that fear would not help. He needed to think clearly. When he reached land, Arif packed his equipment quietly and drove home. The road felt longer than usual. Every passing car made him tense. By the time he reached his small apartment, the sun was already setting. Inside, Arif locked the door and sat at his table. He opened his laptop and transferred the images from his camera. One by one, the photos appeared on the screen. The presidential car was clearly visible. The symbol on the front confirmed everything he already knew. Arif searched online for any record of a missing presidential vehicle. He spent hours reading old news reports and archived articles. There were mentions of accidents, rumors, and unexplained events, but nothing that directly matched what he had found. It was as if the car had been erased from history. Late into the night, Arif leaned back in his chair. His eyes felt tired, but his mind stayed sharp. Someone had worked very hard to hide this truth. That made the discovery even more dangerous. The next morning, Arif decided he could not handle this alone. He needed advice from someone he trusted. He called Samir, an old friend who worked as a marine researcher. Samir had experience with underwater discoveries and knew how to deal with authorities. They met at a quiet cafe near the harbor. Arif kept his voice low as he explained everything. Samir listened carefully without interrupting. When Arif finished, Samir's face had lost all color. "This is serious," Samir said softly. "This is bigger than you think." Arif showed him the images. Samir stared at the screen for a long moment. "If this is real," Samir said, "someone wanted this hidden forever." They discussed possible steps. Samir suggested contacting a trusted official or an independent investigation group. Arif hesitated. Trust did not come easily anymore. Whoever was responsible for hiding the car might still be watching. That evening, Arif received an email from an unknown address. There was no name, only a short message. "Stop searching. Some things are meant to stay underwater." Arif felt a cold shock move through his body. He checked the sender's details, but they were hidden. Someone knew what he had found. Someone was paying attention. He did not reply. Instead, he backed up all his files onto multiple drives and hid them in different places. He knew one thing for sure now. Turning back was no longer an option. That night, Arif dreamed of the ocean. He saw the car again, resting silently in the dark. This time, the trunk was fully open. Inside was not just one object, but many, stacked carefully, each holding a secret that could change everything. He woke up sweating. The next day, Arif and Samir returned to the harbor. Samir had arranged access to better equipment and a stronger underwater light. They planned another dive, not to touch anything, but to document more evidence. As Arif prepared his gear, he felt fear, but also determination. The truth had surfaced for a reason. He believed that. When Arif entered the water again, the ocean felt colder than before. As he descended, memories of the first dive returned. His light cut through the darkness, guiding him back to the hidden place. The car appeared again, exactly where it had been. Silent. Waiting. This time, Arif kept his distance. He recorded everything carefully. Then his light moved to the trunk. The gap looked wider than before. Arif's heart sank. Something had changed. Whatever was inside the trunk was no longer fully hidden. And that meant someone else might already know the truth. Arif stayed still in the water, watching the trunk from a safe distance. His light moved slowly across the back of the car. The opening was wider now, and the metal looked freshly bent. This did not happen by itself. Someone had been here after his first dive. His chest felt tight as he recorded everything. He did not touch the car. He did not try to open the trunk more. He only observed. The ocean around him felt empty, but his instincts told him he was not alone in this situation. After finishing the recording, Arif signaled Samir and began his ascent. When he reached the surface, he removed his mask and took a long breath. Samir was already watching him closely. "It changed," Arif said quietly. "The trunk is more open." Samir frowned. "That means someone else knows." They returned to shore without speaking much. Both men were thinking the same thing. This was no longer just a discovery. It was an active mystery. Back at Samir's research office, they reviewed the new footage. The difference between the first and second dive was clear. The trunk opening was larger, and the wrapping inside had shifted slightly. Whatever was inside had been touched or moved. Samir leaned back in his chair. "We need to be careful. This feels controlled." Arif nodded. "Someone is following this." That evening, Arif went home early. He felt watched the entire drive. When he reached his apartment building, he noticed a dark vehicle parked across the street. It did not move. He told himself not to panic, but his hands tightened on his keys. Inside his apartment, Arif checked every lock and closed the curtains. He sat in silence for a long time. His phone buzzed suddenly, making him jump. It was another message from an unknown number. "You were warned." Arif stared at the screen. No threats. No explanation. Just pressure. He turned his phone off. The next morning, Arif received a call from Samir. His voice sounded tense. "Someone visited my office last night," Samir said. "They asked about our work. They did not say who they were." That confirmed everything Arif feared. This discovery had reached powerful ears. They agreed to meet in person. This time, they chose a public place with many people around. Sitting across from each other, they spoke carefully. "We should involve the media," Samir suggested. "Once the truth is public, it becomes harder to hide." Arif shook his head. "If we rush, we could lose everything. Or worse." They decided on a safer step. They would send a sealed copy of the evidence to an international archive that protected sensitive discoveries. If anything happened to them, the files would still exist. That afternoon, Arif prepared the package. He included videos, images, location data, and written notes. He did not include his personal information. Only the facts. When the package was sent, Arif felt a small sense of relief. But it did not last long. That night, he could not sleep. Every sound outside made him alert. Near midnight, he heard footsteps in the hallway outside his apartment. They stopped near his door. His breath slowed as he listened. After a long moment, the footsteps moved away. The next day, Arif decided to revisit the site alone. Samir argued against it, but Arif felt a strong pull. He needed to understand what was inside that trunk. He prepared carefully and entered the water once more. As he descended, his mind stayed focused. Fear was present, but so was purpose. The car appeared again, silent and heavy. This time, Arif noticed new marks on the sand nearby. Fresh disturbances. Someone had anchored a boat here recently. Arif moved closer, his light steady. The trunk was now open enough to see inside clearly. What he saw made his stomach turn. Inside the trunk were sealed containers, each marked with official symbols. These were not personal items. They were documents, records, objects meant to be protected. One container had cracked open. Papers floated slightly inside, protected by layers but still visible. Arif recognized stamps and signatures used only at the highest level of government. This was not about one person. This was about history. Arif recorded everything. His hands were steady, but his heart felt heavy. This discovery explained why the car was hidden. It carried secrets that could rewrite events people thought they understood. As Arif turned to leave, his light caught movement in the distance. A shadow. Large and slow. Another diver. Arif froze. The figure did not approach. It stayed back, watching. Then it disappeared into the darkness. Arif did not wait. He ascended immediately, his mind racing. When he reached the surface, he knew one thing for certain. This secret was no longer buried. And the people who hid it were running out of time. Arif did not speak during the ride back to shore. His face was pale, and his thoughts were heavy. The image of the other diver stayed in his mind like a warning that refused to fade. Someone else had been watching the car, and that meant the danger was closer than ever. When Arif reached land, he contacted Samir immediately. They met at Samir's office, locking the door behind them. Arif explained everything, from the sealed containers to the shadow in the water. Samir listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with every word. "This confirms it," Samir said slowly. "This is organized. Someone is guarding this secret." Arif nodded. "They are not trying to scare us anymore. They are trying to control us." They reviewed the newest footage together. The symbols on the containers were clear. The documents were real. This was proof of hidden decisions and buried truths. Samir realized that even trusted local authorities might not be safe to involve. "We need protection," Samir said. "And we need witnesses." They decided to contact an international investigative group known for protecting sources. This group worked quietly and independently. Arif sent an encrypted message with a small sample of the evidence. He did not send everything yet. Trust had to be earned. Later that day, Arif noticed something strange. His email account showed a login attempt from an unknown location. Someone was trying to get inside his files. He immediately changed his security settings and disconnected from the internet. That night, Arif stayed at Samir's place. Neither of them wanted to be alone. They spoke little, choosing silence over fear. Outside, rain began to fall, covering the city in gray shadows. Near midnight, the power went out. The apartment fell into darkness. Samir stood up slowly and moved toward the window. Arif stayed still, listening. The sound of rain was constant, but beneath it, there was another sound. A vehicle engine. Idling nearby. Samir closed the curtains carefully. "We are not imagining this anymore," he said. They waited until the power returned. When it did, the engine sound was gone. The next morning, Arif received a reply from the investigative group. The message was short but clear. They believed the evidence was serious. They wanted a secure meeting in a different city. Arif felt a mix of relief and fear. Leaving town might keep them safe, but travel also made them vulnerable. Still, they agreed it was necessary. They packed lightly and left before sunrise. During the drive, Arif kept checking the mirrors. Every car behind them felt suspicious. Samir tried to stay calm, talking about small things to keep their minds steady. Halfway through the journey, they noticed a dark vehicle following them at a distance. It stayed behind for miles, never passing, never falling back. "They are tracking us," Arif said quietly. Samir changed lanes. The vehicle followed. He took an exit suddenly. The vehicle did not. They waited for a moment. Nothing happened. "That could have been coincidence," Samir said, but his voice lacked confidence. They continued their drive without stopping. When they finally reached the meeting place, they felt exhausted but alert. The building was simple and unmarked. Inside, they were met by a woman named Nadia. She spoke calmly and listened carefully. After reviewing the evidence, Nadia looked at Arif and Samir seriously. "This information is explosive. People have protected it for years. You are both in danger." Arif asked the question he had been avoiding. "Can you keep this safe?" Nadia nodded. "Yes. And once it is secured, it cannot be erased." They handed over the full archive. As the files transferred, Arif felt a weight lift from his chest. The truth was no longer in his hands alone. Before leaving, Nadia gave them instructions. Stay low. Avoid patterns. Do not return to the dive site. They agreed. On the drive back, Arif felt calmer, but something still felt unfinished. The other diver. The opened containers. Someone was still out there. That night, Arif dreamed again of the ocean. This time, the car was gone. Only empty sand remained. The secret had moved. The next morning, news broke quietly. An international investigation had begun into missing government records from decades ago. No names were mentioned. No sources were revealed. Arif knew this was only the beginning. Later that day, Samir received a call. His face went pale as he listened. The dive site, he said after hanging up. It has been sealed. Restricted access. Military presence. Arif closed his eyes slowly. They had arrived too late to protect the scene, but not too late to protect the truth. That evening, Arif stood by the window, watching the city lights. He felt fear but also resolve. He had not asked for this discovery, but he would not run from it. The ocean had given up its secret. Now the world had to face it. Weeks passed after the investigation became public, but Arif's life did not return to normal. Even though the evidence was now protected and shared beyond his control, the shadow of the discovery followed him everywhere. He had stopped diving completely. The ocean that once felt like freedom now reminded him of hidden dangers. Arif stayed mostly indoors, keeping a low profile as advised. He changed his routine, avoided familiar places, and spoke only to a few trusted people. Samir did the same. They stayed in touch daily, checking on each other, sharing any strange signs. News reports slowly began to change. At first, they were vague. Journalists spoke of missing records, sealed investigations, and historical gaps. Then questions grew louder. Why were old government documents missing? Why was a classified vehicle never accounted for? Officials gave careful answers, but none of them felt complete. Arif watched these reports quietly from his apartment. He did not feel proud. He did not feel victorious. He felt responsible. The truth had started to move, and once it moved, it could not be stopped. One evening, Arif received a letter. Not an email. A real letter, slid under his door. His hands shook as he picked it up. There was no name on the envelope. Inside was a single page. You did the right thing. Some truths hurt, but silence hurts more. That was all. Arif sat down slowly. This was the first message he had received that did not feel like a threat. It felt like closure, or at least the beginning of it. Days later, Samir called him with important news. The international group had confirmed that the documents from the ocean car matched missing records from a major historical event. Decisions that were officially denied had now been proven real. Policies that changed lives had been hidden for decades. This will take time, Samir said. But it will change how people understand the past. Arif nodded, even though Samir could not see him. He understood that truth did not arrive all at once. It came slowly, pushing against resistance. One morning, Arif woke early and walked to the shore. He stood far from the water, watching waves move in and out. He did not feel fear this time. He felt respect. The ocean had carried the secret for years, waiting for the right moment. As weeks turned into months, the investigation expanded. Independent historians joined. International courts requested reviews. Names were questioned, not accused, but examined carefully. The process was slow and careful, as it needed to be. Arif stayed out of the spotlight. His name never appeared in the news. He preferred it that way. He returned to teaching diving safety at a small local center. He focused on training others, sharing knowledge, not chasing discoveries. One afternoon, a young student asked him why he stopped deep diving. Arif thought for a moment before answering. Some depths are not just about pressure, he said. They carry weight. The student nodded, not fully understanding, but respecting the answer. On the anniversary of the discovery, Arif received one final message from Nadia. She thanked him again and told him the files were now permanently archived and protected. Nothing could erase them. Arif closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. For the first time in a long while, he felt calm. That night, he dreamed of the ocean one last time. In the dream, the car was gone, the sand smooth and untouched. The water was clear. The secret had been released, and the sea was free of it. When Arif woke, he felt lighter. He knew there would always be people who tried to hide the truth. But there would also be people willing to face it, even when it was terrifying. Arif was one of them. And because of that, history would never be the same again.